For today's 3-minute halacha, we are up to karpas, to dipping a vegetable in salt water after we wash our hands without the bracha. There are 3 reasons given as to why we have this karpas before the meal. Number 1, the most simple explanation based off of the Gemara is to get the children to ask. We know we do many things differently than we typically do. We don't typically have a vegetable prior to a meal, and therefore we do this in order that the children should be engaged. The children should ask questions. A second reason given is that it's an act of royalty to have an appetizer prior to a meal. And therefore, on the night of the Seder, we try to mimic royalty. That's what we do by leaning and etc. and having other people pour wine for us. So there are other realms of trying to mimic the concept of being a night of royalty. So therefore, karpas, to have a vegetable prior to the meal, is also an act of royalty. And the third reason mentioned is that karpas, spelled backwards, is samech perich. Samech perich, samech is 60 in Gematria, 60 representative of the 600,000 Jews that left Mitzrayim. And perich is the avodas perich, literally the backbreaking work which was done by the Jews in Mitzrayim. The question, though, becomes what type of vegetable do we use? So it's unclear from the Gemara. The Gemara mentions that they would have a vegetable and they would dip it in salt water, but doesn't mention specifically which vegetable. So there's much discussion, and the Sefer Hamanig is the initial one that mentioned in the 12th century that he mentions that we should use the vegetable of karpas. That doesn't really help us who don't on a weekday or ever eat a vegetable called karpas. So and the Rizal agrees that we should eat this vegetable called karpas. The question is, what is karpas? Rashi in Maseches Sukkah, the Gemara does mention the idea of the concept of karpas, and the Rashi interprets it based off his rebbeim, based off his teachers, that it is what's called a vegetable of api. What is api? Still doesn't help us because most of us don't eat api. Or maybe we do. The Chassam Sofer quotes from his Rebbe, Reb Nosson Adler, that the vegetable that they used to call api, that in the times of the Rishonim, that Rashi refers to, is actually the vegetable that we know as celery. So therefore, there is a strong source and a strong minhag that many have to have celery. However, it is not abundantly clear, and that does not seem to be what everyone has done since the times of the Gemara. There are many minhagim, potatoes, some of the minhag of parsley, and so there are other viable options as well. The report is that Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach supposedly used celery for most of his life until towards the end of his life. He gave it up in favor of cucumber. Perhaps it was because it was easier to chew, but that is what is reported. And the bottom line here is that it should be a vegetable. It should be a vegetable which we recite a borei pri hadama on. And have in mind the maror is a separate discussion, right? But that when we make the hadama on the karpas, whatever we are having for the karpas, it should be hadama, so we could also pater exempt the maror that we have later on. So therefore, again, the main factor is that it should be a vegetable with the bracha of hadama. If one has a strong family minhag for something other than celery, potato, parsley, whatever it may be, then that is totally a viable option. If one does not, then it does seem to be that there is a preference, at least among Ashkenazi poskim, that celery should be the one to go to if there's not a strong family minhag otherwise. Have a fantastic day.